Good evening, Franklin Township, and welcome to the March 8th
Eight.
edition of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour. I'm Bill Bowman, the editor and co-publisher of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate.
And I'm PJ Parker, the co publisher and the advertising director, and whatever else I need to do of the Franklin Reporter and Advocate.
And today,
And here we are.
did I just snort? I think I just snorted. Today
Uh
we
oh.
have,
Can
I'm
we edit that
the
out?
camera here. Today we have,
Although, in keeping with tonight's topic, it's actually quite apropos.
suppose,
Now,
tonight we
can you
have,
bark?
okay, tonight we have an interesting show. We are going to be talking to the founder or founders of
Founder.
founder of Friends of Nicky, which is a pet bereavement organization here in Franklin Township. And PJ is more directly acquainted with this organization, so I'm going to let her take it from here.
Yes, it's actually Friends of Nicky is actually it's a pet bereavement and pet loss support group that was started by a Franklin woman who happens to be a good friend of mine. We've been through many Shih Tzus and Pekingese and a few other little breeds, and I'm sure you may hear some barking tonight from my two and maybe Donna's too. And I'm not quite sure how many we have from our another guest, Debbie Antonori, who also is involved in pet loss and transitions. So, in honor of International Women's Day, I thought it would be really appropriate to introduce two very, very special women. And the fact that it happens to be the 20th anniversary of the Friends of Nicky's founding. And Nicky was a beautiful little black and white Shih Tzu. And when we bring Donna Kahora on, she's going to tell us all about Nicky and how she inspired this group and what the group actually has been able to achieve over the last 20 years. Debbie Antonori is also a dear friend of Donna's, and they've worked in tandem, appeared on television shows for varying pet organizations and pet advice and pet loss coping skills. So I think they will be really equipped to take us on this journey. And I'm going to let Donna tell you how to reach her. If you are in a position where you have an animal who is not feeling well or is in stages of an illness that are very dangerous, or you have just recently lost an animal, a dear baby in your family, a fur baby, you might want to reach out to Donna. And we'll give you all of that contact information when they come aboard, and we can flesh out this really beautiful but unsung topic in our community.
Right.
So whenever we're ready, Bill.
Right. And as usual, if you have any questions or any comments you'd like to make, please make them in the comments, and we will get to them during the course of the program. So let's bring on uh, Deb and Donna. Hello. Welcome to the Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hour.
Hello. Good evening.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yes, Donna is in the lavender, and Deb, what are you wearing, Deb?
Oh, little Jim.
You're a little black and white. Okay. Well, that's in honor of Nicky. And Donna, I know lavender is a really special color as far as Nicky is concerned. And we just introduced you as the founder and the starter of the Friends of Nicky Pet Loss Pet Bereavement Group. And today is your 20th anniversary. I can hardly believe it. It's just incredible. Would you like to just tell Franklin what this group is all about? Who was Nicky? How did she inspire you to get this group going? And what does it mean to people who are in the stages of pet bereavement, pet loss, and pet illness?
Okay, that's a lot of questions all in one, PJ. Okay, we'll start with, Nicky, I think you had mentioned, was a little Shih Tzu. She was a force to be reckoned with. She was a feisty little girl, very strong little girl in a 12 and a half pound body. She came into my life in 1985 when just a few months after I had lost my very, very first dog. I always wanted a dog, but never had one or any pet actually, until I was out on my own, graduated nursing school, and the first thing I did was buy a dog. And back then it was buy a dog, it wasn't adoption.
Right.
So I got my little Ziggy, who was a Maltese, and Ziggy was with me, sadly, only 10 years, which is a short lifespan. And you know, I experienced something which a lot of people that come to the group tell me. It's like they never even gave loss, the death of their pet, a thought. It's like you adopt a pet, you bring them into your life, and they'll just be there forever. And I don't think realize what the short lifespan they have. At least I didn't. But anyway, he was with me for 10 years, and when he died, I was devastated. And there was, other than my husband, who loved him too, there was no support, not much support available back then. And I didn't have my own little circle of people. So I was having a tough time, and I pretty much coped with the grief by not coping with the grief. And I thought I needed another dog. Ziggy had died in July, 2 days after his 10th birthday. And so I knew I couldn't go through the holidays without a dog. So we thought about looking around and trying to find one. And it so happened that my husband's aunt's dog just had puppies, a Shih Tzu. So we were only married a little over a year. My mother-in-law called and said, Aunt Josie's dog had puppies, go look at one. And, I joke about it because when I went there, like a Shih Tzu was the last dog that I didn't even know what they were. And, I have a little writing up on Nicky where, I always say she didn't even have a nose. She had that pushed in face, and I wasn't looking for Nicky. I was comparing her, basically what I was doing, which happens a lot when one loses a pet, is that, you tend to compare them, especially if you haven't really begun the grief process. You tend to compare them to, the previous pet that you've lost, and it's that's what I was doing. So, Nicky did not measure up at all to Ziggy.
Oh, she was a girl, first of all.
She was a girl, but I was told to put her in a crate for the first year at night so that she learned to be a good girl and not sleep in the bed. And long story short, we brought her into the bed because she was driving us crazy and crying, and just nobody was getting any sleep. And she was as happy as can be in that bed, and for many years after, she let me sleep in that bed also. So which was really good. But she had a real, I think from the beginning, had a feisty personality, and so she left me with something that I just knew I had to keep her spirit going on. And when she became ill, and her other younger brother, had many health problems, I sought out support, and there really wasn't anything back then. There was maybe one or two support groups, and nothing worked out for me to find the support. So that's how I found Debbie. She was advertising, and I don't even remember the name of that little book that went out, local area. Deb, I don't know if you remember the name of it, but I found her name there, and I called her and I said, "Are you doing support groups? I'm preparing for losing. I'm thinking I might be losing my pet." And we connected, and then as Nicky got sick, Debbie and I were talking about maybe me doing something, actually starting a group afterwards. And Friends of Nicky started as a group to support people who had, like you said earlier, who had aging pets or had pets that were ill. It didn't start as a pet loss support group, but I started getting people who, learned of the group after they had already had the loss. So it kind of morphed into a combination of all of the above. And that was the story of Friends of Nicky. And I couldn't start it right away because my grief was, just so difficult. When I lost Nicky, I started grieving Ziggy, who I never fully grieved. So the grief was pretty powerful, which again is something that's not all that unusual. If we don't grieve, if we don't work through the grief and express the grief, it has a way of coming back to us and making itself known. So I started preparing for it like bits at a time. I had done a little bit with Nikki actually before she left. She worked with me on some of the ideas, and then I guess it was about 8 months after she passed. We had our first meeting, which was March 8th of 2001. So, and that's it. That's
20 years.
start of
Well,
Nikki and
One of the
friends of
things
Nikki.
that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the things that I wanted to make known is you mentioned your nursing degree, and if I'm not mistaken, you had done hospice work. Is that true? So,
I had worked, yeah, I worked actually early on more in neonatal, but intensive care work. So I worked a lot with children.
So you worked with children, but you had counseling experience within the context of illness. And
Yes.
I'm sure that somewhere that was able to assist you innately in doing the kind of work that you've done with people and their fur babies. So, for those of us who don't have human children, there are babies, and there's nothing like having a baby who is sick, who you may not be able to help, and to talk to somebody who can understand what you're going through and the potential for the grief. It's just an amazing gift that you were able to do this, and I personally am grateful that you started this group. And I also wanted to include Debbie. I mean, Donna and I, Franklin, have had a history of Shih Tzu and a history. Well, I didn't have the Pekingese. You had Pekingese, but I have Shih Tzu. I have one lying right next to me. So if we hear some growling, barking, that means a fly must be buzzing someplace. And I just wanted to also, of course, bring Debbie into this. Debbie, you have a background in psychotherapy, and as well as Westminster Shih Tzu entries, yes, champions, I think.
Yes.
So we're all in this little Shih Tzu world together, and I know you also, in tandem with Donna, have a group with pets in transition, as well as so much of your other work dealing with coping on human and animal level. So tell us a little bit about Debbie and Donna and Friends of Nicky and your group, and how the two of you solidified all of this.
Right. Yes. Thanks, PJ. Yes, so lovely to hear Donna recount, the importance of Nicky to her and in memorializing her and her importance and her spark for life, being able to be of service for 20 years to people that, we really call pet loss a disenfranchised loss. Other pet owners or pet parents, we say many times, may understand, and other people may not. And that can be particularly painful, when you have loss. So I was doing actually individual therapy, and then I started doing pet loss work, particularly when I lost Pekingese of mine, Yoko, in 96. I can't believe it's been that long. And I wrote an audiobook. So Donna and I kind of met over the audiobook because I didn't have a group. So she was interested in the audiobook, and then we became friends because we had so much in common with the Pekingese. And then I had Shih Tzus now, 2 Shih Tzus after having lost Yoko. So we became friends and colleagues that way with our interest in pets, both living and those who have passed away. And as you mentioned, I had one, my Shih Tzus were therapy dogs. They're such good therapy dogs.
Oh, they're wonderful. They are. They're so affectionate and sweet and loaded with personality. It's
Yes, and
I don't have to tell you, right?
and exactly. At one point, I was going to have to move my office out of my home. I had a home office and needed to move for a while into a regular office. And when I went searching, I said, if I can't bring my dog, and I had a new Shih Tzu at that point, those two Shih Tzus had died, little Simmery.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't bring her, I don't know if my clients are going to come with me.
Right.
And they always seem to be, will Simmery be there? You know?
Right. Of course. Of course.
Yes, I will make sure I find a place where
Right.
Simmery can be, because they, oh my gosh, the kind of grounding and the kind of just the way they just know how to greet the person and then just be there and hold the space in a way.
Yes. That is
Comforting.
just an incredible experience. I wanted to just get back to Donna for a second for Doogie. I remember Doogie being the little ambassador at some of your meetings, the Friends of Nicky meetings, and I was astounded at how sympathetic, how empathetic he was, unspoken. He would go to almost every person sitting in a chair and acknowledge each one of them, almost in greeting and support. And he was a quiet but warm and loving presence, and it was just very, very special. Now, Doogie was a little Pekingese, and
Yes.
Doogie also another heartbreaker. Just a gorgeous little dog, but I'll never forget how he made himself a part of that meeting to give peace and to give comfort to everyone. He knew people were upset. He got it. He more than got it. He was with them, with us. It was a lesson in the empathy of an animal.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Doogie at that point was older, so he was very well behaved. So I needed to move. I originally started holding my meetings at a doctor's office that I had, human doctor's office that I had worked for. And I needed to move them to, find a new spot. And in my search, in between, I decided to hold the meetings in my home. And that's when Doogie, Doogie's presence was there. And at that point, Doogie was my only pet. My two Shih Tzus had Nicky and Danny had since passed. So it was just Doogie. And it was interesting because I never really paid much attention to Doogie. He was quiet. He stayed. He didn't, interfere with the guests, the people that were attending. But after Doogie died, the first meeting afterwards was like very soon after I was. We were due to have a meeting, and I decided to hold it. And I just kind of put out, to the group, in honor of Doogie. Say something about your own pet that you have lost and how they've impacted your life. And so we went around in the circle. And the interesting thing was everybody talked about Doogie. And he came to me as soon as I walked in the door. Every time somebody was in tears, he would go to them and sit under their chair. I didn't know any of that. It was like I had not really focused on him, of course, while I was leading the group. And I didn't realize the impact he had.
Oh, tremendous.
I mean, the one gentleman said that he was so nervous and uncomfortable about attending a pet loss a group because he had never been in a support group before. And it was Doogie who kept him here.
Wow.
So, I mean, the old saying, if they're just a dog or they're just a cat. I mean, it's just incredible the how he interacted with them, like you said, without words, because they don't need words. And that's the gift and the blessing that comes with animals. And I didn't realize he was working all that time too.
Exactly.
Like Debbie's dogs, like Simmery and like Fanny and Pimpernel were working with your clients and in a very quiet, unspoken way. So just another gift that they give us.
This silent hand holding that as someone who attended when I lost my Sashi, I attended a couple of those meetings, and just the presence of another dog. I remember a dog before that. We knew each other when Tashi was with us, and I remember losing her, and the very next day having to go to a pet store just to hold an animal, just to hold another puppy, just to feel that little body, that little warmth, and so not ready to bring somebody else into the house for all the reasons that you talked about comparison and whatnot. But just at your meetings, just Dewey's presence, I'm sure that kept people from losing their minds, because there was that little presence of that warm little animal there that embodied all the grieving that they were going through. Just to have him there, it softened the blows. It was really incredible. Oh, okay, I'm going to get weepy because we've all been there for various things.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Quick question, but probably not a quick answer. What are some of the strategies that you give folks in your group to deal with the grief of losing a pet who's been with them maybe 17 years, maybe 20 years?
It really varies. There are many ways of coping. I think when people first lose a pet, one of the most important things, because it's hard to, they're not going to maybe memorialize or do something like I did with Friends of Nicky. It took me 8 months to get that started. But there are so many things that they can do. And I think one of the most important is just, I tell them, if you can find one person, even just one, that will listen, that will hear you. And one of the guidelines that I have with the group when we have the meetings is that we go, everybody who does want to speak gets a chance to, in the beginning of the session, gets a chance to talk without any interruption. That's a time where we say no crosstalk. Because so many times out in the world, you'll talk to your neighbor, you'll talk to a family member, or even a good friend that really loves animals and understands it. And you barely get through telling your story or your feelings, and they're right jumping in there, telling you about the neighbor's dog that just died, or a dog that they had, or
And that's not helpful.
and it pulls you off track. And one of the reasons I think when people are, especially early on in the grief, when the feelings are so raw and the person is emotional, our society, the way our culture is, it's very hard for people to sit in that grief, to sit with somebody and listen to it. So, Bill, I think the first thing, that before anything else is to be able to talk about it and be able to validate that your feelings are real, that the love, the bond was very strong, and that the loss is devastating. And so many people say, I thought I was going crazy, or I thought there was something wrong with me, because, they're not supposed to have those strong feelings. People, people express that I didn't cry or I didn't feel this sad when my grandmother died or when my parent or sibling died. And there are many reasons for that. That could be a whole nother interview. But I think that's the first thing, just being able to talk about it, just, being able to share that. And early on, maybe create some kind of memorial service, because with human loss, we have that in place. We have, I know with COVID things have changed, but we have, depending on your maybe religious beliefs, we have a wake, a viewing of some type. We have maybe a memorial service. We have a church service and a burial, and everybody attends, and there's a lot of support. And it's published in a newspaper somewhere, and there's a lot a lot of support that's coming in. Where with pet loss, you have none of that for the most part.
Mhm.
So you have to create your own. So I suggest that people, if it's a family, especially with children, because it's such a teachable moment for children about um, expressing feelings and the permission to do that,
Mhm.
and the validation that that's what we do, and that's okay to do
Yeah,
it.
exactly. That's okay.
And to, it helps to move some of the feelings. Just create, if we've all lost human family members. Just working on, the wake service, or what they're going to wear, or what you're going to say in the obituary. All that really helps
Mhm.
in the early, uh, time of grief, where you can
Of course.
move that energy that you're feeling inside. And then later on, there was a lot you can do with memorializing, like I did with Nicky. People volunteer. They do they writing, journaling, writing. People write books, poetry, like Debbie in her grief wrote the audio book. That, and not only did it wasn't intended. And Debbie, you can speak to this much better, but the poetry was for you. It was a way of you expressing your grief, and it helped God knows how many thousands of people afterwards. So because you did publish it, I'm one of them. I've listened to your audiobook with each loss that I've had. So we can do a lot of things. So there's a whole list of things, but I would say, Bill, that's where I tell people to start. Just find some support, one person. And if there's someone who doesn't get it, who says, well, you can get another dog, or one of those very dismissive comments,
Mhm.
avoid them if you can.
Yes.
Unfortunately, sometimes they live with you, but if they don't, avoid them, and just stay with the people that, because there are people that
Yeah.
come to the group, and that's the only place they can really talk about their feelings. But, at least there's some place. So
Well,
I don't know if that answers the question,
I
but
would like to just make sure that people know that this is not a group that is only dealing with dog loss. This is across the board animal loss, correct?
that's
Or
correct.
creature loss.
We have had everything: mice, birds, rats, snakes, reptiles of all sorts,
Fish.
horses, fish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had somebody that came for a goldfish, and this was an adult. It was, you
Mm-hmm.
think about, I had goldfish as a child, and, they have very short lifespans, unfortunately. But bunny rabbits, guinea pigs, ferrets, we've had everything.
Mm-hmm.
We've had every species come through
Well,
from,
that's important, frankly. Donna, if you want to just give out some contact information now, and we'll reiterate that at the end as well.
Mhm.
If somebody is in need of talking, of availing themselves of this kind of support, how would one reach you?
Okay, there are, I'd say, three methods. You can reach me by email, and that email address it's very long, and I apologize. My original email address is not functioning very well now, but it's Friends of Nicky. That's Nikki at I'm sorry, Friends of Nicky Pet Loss Support at Comcast.net. So that's Friends of Nicky Pet Loss Support at Comcast.net. They can call me, and the number is 732-246-2124. Or they can also reach out through Franklin Township Library, because that's where I am holding the meetings now. As of about 2 years ago, I moved them out of my home.
Mm-hmm.
My one of my current dogs does not like guests. So since it is his home,
You got to
I,
respect that.
plus it was distracting, for everyone. So it wasn't, this peak is not Doogie. So
Yes, I
very
know.
different personality, but a lot
I've
younger.
got a Shih Tzu who could be his twin.
So the library was kind enough to give me space, and so we meet there. So that's another place they can locate, and they can even register for, one of the groups if they want to sign up. There are no fees involved. I prefer to talk to people in advance of them attending the group. I've done that for years because one of the one of the reasons is that they were held in my home, so I needed to know,
Of course. Safety.
who was attending. But also, I find that the more I can find out about somebody and their bond, and especially in a group setting, if I know who's attending, I can plan in advance how I can help that individual and the group overall, or, if there's something that they're very sensitive about, I can make sure to protect them, because the main thing that Friends of Nicky does provide is a safe place, a safe haven. I don't want anybody to ever be hurt or you're vulnerable when you're grieving, and keeping them feeling safe and comfortable is something that I've maintained from the beginning. And but the library will also help them with that.
That's one of the things that I know about you, Donna, having known you for years, is that you're a very sensitive, very empathetic individual. And I marvel at your ability to not let every grief grieve you, especially during I could lose it right now thinking about it. But your compassion, you were able to contain your own experiences to help others, and it's just a beautiful experience. I encourage you, Franklin, and beyond, that this is a woman who understands and indeed provides a safe haven for you. So, Debbie, I know you're doing similar work in. Are you doing it online now, or are you doing it in New Jersey? Tell us a little bit about your work and how you and Donna are conjoining.
Right. Right now, everything is
okay.
online.
Okay. Good boy. It's okay.
Somebody wants their time.
Oh, he senses somebody's outside, so he's protecting mommy.
Oh,
we'll see.
That's
been so good up until now. Okay, you're a good boy. Yes, you are. You're a good boy.
And is he a Shih Tzu too?
Well, here he is.
Oh, beautiful.
We think he's baby seal. he's Shih Tzu with a terrier personality. So we're not quite sure.
I love it.
He's sitting here so quietly. Anyway, I'm sorry. We didn't interrupt, did we?
No, not at all. This is another thing. They're each very unique. Yes. So, when you say it's a dog or cat or whatever, it's like, no, they're their own little person. Yes. They each are very uniquely, even litter mates, whatever, they can be very different. And they each bring something, I think, to us that is so special. And that's why we love our life with them, and then we grieve them. Yes. But I'm doing everything online right now. Mm-hmm. I'm actually up in Warwick, New York. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of up on a mountain, and I joke that I think any day there may be a Yeti sighting. I'm not sure if that's an animal or a person, and I think that's part of the whole Yeti thing, but I'm up here.
Right.
On the mountain doing telehealth. Uh-huh. So I see people individually. I really haven't had pet loss groups. I feel like Donna runs such a fabulous group. I refer people to Donna. Okay. And I do the individual for people that find that there's just more there that they, want to go into than that they can go into in the group. So we have a nice way of working back and forth that way. We can, refer whatever seems the best combination, or both. Sometimes people want more time to go into some depth, but they really need and want that camaraderie and that safe place where they can be with other people who feel basically the same way that they do, that hold that same value of the importance of, as Donna said, whether it's a reptile or a cat or a hamster or a dog, a horse. Our heart, we bond. And when we talk about the brain, you know, the mammalian brain, and we have the reptile brain as well, for those reptiles that we love, that's the area, and in humans, where we have our bonding and attachment, where the oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals come from. Pets are so good at getting that going for us. That feel good, you know, all the funny little names that we will call them, and the crazy things they do that on our worst days, they can give us a smile.
Or not.
There's that too.
Yes, I know.
We all know about those days too.
Yes, I know, but that's part of their personality. This little guy who's on my lap right now is a whirling dervish most of the time, and just very, very clever, very agile. I mean, he will literally leap from the floor to the kitchen counter and through the pass-through onto the dining room table and end up on a windowsill with everything in his path down. And you better watch out if you're in Cody's path. So I'm not used to his athleticism, and he's certainly not the laid-back, quiet little Shih Tzu that I've been accustomed to all my life. But I digress. It's every one of them has their own little personality, and they become your little babies. They depend on you, and they support you in their own little ways. It's if you haven't been there, it's hard to describe that. It's hard to translate that feeling. And it's wordless. It's not antic-free, that's for sure. But when they weave themselves into your lives like that, wordlessly, not without personality and not without character, but when we lose them, there are words such as that.
Those are the words.
That transcend anything else that on a human level. It's just really hard to explain it. I'm just so grateful for the two of you being as active as you are to support the rest of us.
Well, you know, it makes me think of a story about when I got my first Pekingese. I was 12 years old. Wow. And my parents, I begged them from the age of 5. I'd seen a couple Pekingese on Cape Cod. They were at this little inn, and I would eat my dinner, a little place of dinner across the street, and say, "Can I go over and see Janji and Tico?" And my parents would say, "Sure." And they always let me go in and play with them at the inn. And so I finally got a Pekingese, and my mom had a St. Bernard mix growing up. So she said, you know, "Oh, I'm not going to get attached to this little fluff ball, you know, whatever. He's cute, but he's Debbie's, you know." And oh my gosh, when his time came, my father was like, "Your mom is really having a hard time," you know, and really he got in there, I'm sure, in the first week. You know?
Wow.
Yeah. So people can be surprised sometimes. It's like, "Oh, you know, my child wants a dog. Oh, it's another being to take care of. It's a responsibility," but they give so much back, and then you can be really surprised how much you care for them and how much they give to you. So
one of the things that I also wanted to explore at the time, 2 schools of thought, maybe 100 schools of thought. I need to get another dog right away just because. Donna, you were in that position because I have to replace that feeling. I have to replace that warmth. And there are schools of thought say, "Well, I don't know. Do I want to go through this again? Do I ever want to experience this kind of grief and pain and loss?" And the answer that I've come up with since I've been involved more in advocacy and rescue, I never knew Shih Tzus needed rescuing, ever. Who knew? I had show dogs like you did. And when the time came, as I said, my first instinct, I got to hold a dog. I have to. But can I bring somebody else into my home right now? How soon is too soon? Or is it ever too soon? Or when somebody says, "Oh, I just can't go through that again," I've been able to say, you know, every space that's created when you lose somebody that close to you makes room for another animal who really needs a wonderful forever home, who is out there, who may be wandering the streets or languishing in a shelter. Your animal leaving for another plane makes room in your heart and your home for somebody else who really needs you. So either of you, please comment.
Well, you know what's interesting is during COVID, they said that the shelters were literally like cleaned out. When people were at home, they had that need to have someone else there. Or now is the time to bring in, you know, an animal. So this is an unusual time to hear that, oh, you know, we don't have many dogs or we don't have many cats. But yes, I think that, you know, if you're an animal person, that you'll know the right timing and pacing for you. I think everybody has their own internal clock with that we want to give the time that we don't, you know, maybe make painful comparisons that could possibly mean that we might bring an animal back, you know, that hopefully, you know, most shelters are okay with that and able to then find someone that it can really be the forever home with. But yes, it definitely does open up a space for people to consider. Like you said, I had show dogs before too. I have now my little guy, he's a Shih Tzu, he's a rescue. And I couldn't believe too, people say to me, oh, he's a purebred, he's amazing, little blue. And, but he, oh my gosh, you know, he is, brings so much to us, and different times of life, different things, you know, different pacing and timing. I got him pretty quickly after my little Simmery passed. I was going through chemo. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I couldn't believe, oh my gosh, I have to lose my little sweetheart in this period of time.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Then it was a couple of months later, and literally my first week after chemo, I just happened to be looking on Shih Tzu and Fur Baby, and there was Blue looking crazy with this little blue eye and a little brown eye, and he was black and white, and I was like, oh, okay, there he is. He's just pulling me in.
Yes, I know. My Sashi was a Shih Tzu Fur Baby.
Yes.
And, also at my little Kaishen boy.
Oh,
really? He's now almost totally blind.
Wow.
And I knew when I saw his little face.
Yeah.
That's my baby. That's just my baby. It's a wonderful thing when there are groups out there who are able to furnish pictures and personality profiles and whatever.
Yes.
I'm really digressing all over the place because this is a subject that I could weep over.
Well, that's the thing, the many facets of, you know, when you first get them, and I talk about this in my audiobook, it's like going over the whole trajectory of their life at some point in time and looking at pictures and then recalling, you know, that hopefully we get the 10 or 15 years with, you know, a smaller dog. As Donna said, 10 years is not much for a small dog.
For a baby dog, right.
15 or more. It's an era of your life and all you go through. And when you lose them, it's also a time to look at, wow, you know, what part of my life did they shepherd me through and help me with?
Exactly.
You know, grad school, and whether kids or not, or nieces and nephews, and change of jobs, or maybe moved, or whatever it is, and their being there was helpful to you. Maybe you met friends because because we have similar types of dogs.
Right. Yeah, that's how we're here today. I remember, I don't know how many years ago, Donna, that I had seen you had posted the Friends of Nicky poster. I think it was in where Zoop is now, in the Cedar Grove Lane area where it used to be a drugstore. And I remember there was a bulletin board on the front. And I kept seeing this with little sheets. I was, oh my gosh, I have to call her. And we discovered we had a breeder in common, Jean Lukenbach, who is no longer with us. And that's how it began. And it's ages and ages ago. And just thinking about the adoption process through rescuing. I know, Donna, you did the same thing, that we went to where the dogs were. We auditioned for them, made sure that they loved us. I drove to Connecticut twice to meet Kai-Shen and make sure to see if he liked me. I know, Donna, you were up in upstate New York,
And Connecticut too.
right?
Mhm.
That's what you do. Unless the three of us are just crazy.
Well, there's that too, but it's
Yes,
good crazy.
that's true. But you understand, and that's a global you, that these animals have frequently either been victimized in puppy mills or just in abusive situations, and you want the lives that you can give them to be as wonderful as you possibly can. You want it to be a good match. So you do these crazy things like drive 3 hours one way just to meet them for the first time for the meet and greet. But anyway, I'm digressing all over the place because this just feels like we're all sitting in our living room and talking about our babies. Donna, tell us a little bit more about Friends of Nicky, where it stands now. Are there any other options? I mean, do you work with any other groups, any shelter groups, or just tell us a little bit what's going on now?
Well, like everybody else with COVID, everything has changed. No, a couple of years ago, I kind of pulled back a little bit. I used to do a lot of communication with people in between meetings because we meet once a month. It's the third Sunday of each month, and I always talk, like I said, with somebody. Most of the contacts, actually, people contact me by phone, but I used to do, some counseling over the phone with people in between if they were having a tough day and all. And I have cut back on a lot of that, for my own personal reasons. But I find it so hard to do. It's, because I know that even now, especially with people, not that pet loss and grief is any different because it's always devastating if you have that bond, but it's so different now because people may not be able to be with their pet when the pet's in the hospital, or they take their pet to the vet and they have to sit in the car. I just spoke with someone who never even met the vet, had no idea what the vet looked like even. And this person, was part of making major decisions for their baby. So a lot of things have changed, and there has been some good that's come out of it, in that, with Zoom, I'm able to bring in people that are out of the area, that normally wouldn't be able to travel to Somerset to, be part of the group. At least they can because of Zoom. But it's also that people are very lonely and very isolated now, or have been. I think, I believe we're going in the right direction with that. But that isolation on top of, like Debbie said, the disenfranchised loss and the, just not being able to be with your pet through a lot of it. Even services. I know I had people when COVID first started where they weren't having, just like with humans, they weren't having funeral services because you can have a full, people don't realize you can have a full wake and funeral for your pet if that's what you desire to do.
Yeah,
But
tell us about that. I know there's a place in, is it Lawrence Township, Lawrenceville?
Hamilton.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, it's Hamilton Pet Meadow. There are a couple of probably them and Abbey Glen up in Lafayette, New Jersey. Those are the
I've
two.
heard of that as well.
Yeah, that are used the most frequently, by most of the vets in this area. But as you know, I lost my another dog. I had Nicky, and she died in 1980. I'm sorry, she died. We got her in 1985, and she died in 2000. And it took me until 2010 to be able to bring another little girl into my life.
Wow.
I just wasn't ready. Nicky still held that place of being queen.
Girl,
Right.
Right.
But we did bring Lily in. Lily was a Japanese chin, and sadly, I mean, she was not even, she was 11 years old, 11 plus. She died last October, and when she passed, I decided to bring her myself to the funeral home, and we were very, I mean, we had an amazing service. We had a full, I had a friend with me. We had a wake service. I spent time with her. They let you, play music, or like Debbie and I had done that with the loss of Debbie's dogs. And then, so you have a regular service, and you can have something, uh, at the burial site if you'd like to do that.
And
So
that's
there's a
at
lot of
Abbey
options.
Glen and the Hamilton Meadows.
Hamilton Pet Meadow in
Uh-huh.
Hamilton. That's where I had Lily. My very first dog, Ziggy, was at Abbey Glen. Everybody since then has been with Hamilton. And you have a choice to go yourself anywhere, as the pet parent. But if, like, most vets are connected to one of those particular, either one. Usually, I think there are others also, even Hartsdale over in New York, some of the vets from here refer to. But most of them have some sort of, I hate to say contract, because that sounds like a real business deal and not very, emotional, but they have a connection or a relationship with a particular funeral home. But people don't realize that they have those
No,
options.
exactly.
And sadly, I meet people for the most part afterwards. So a lot of what I could share with them, of course, it can be used for any, future pets they may have in their life, but, they're just not aware of it, and that's the thing, trying to get, I would love something like, this forum to get information out to people of what they do have, what options they have, what options they have in care, what options they have in, end of life care. There's, you mentioned hospice. There's hospice. In some situations, they call it hospice, but there's hospice. Hospice and hospice has become very big, field now. It's really taken off. And home care visits, where the vets come out to the home, so that the animal, is not stressed any more than they have to be.
Sure.
And so they do whatever. They do IVs, they do blood work, whatever needs to be done in the home.
And
So there are
can people find out that information through you and you, Debbie, as well?
Yes, I always can, I do have that information, and I can give them options. That's something. Friends of Nicky is not just our once a month meeting. There's a lot that goes on in between. I can't I can't tell you the questions people ask, but I try to provide care for a lot of things, especially when the pet is still with them and ill. Just options of other types of vet care. Sometimes people are looking for a holistic vet, and they don't even know that that's a possibility. There are people that don't know there's a pet loss group available. Don't know that they're not aware that there's any support. And
Which is
and
why we're doing this today.
which is why we're
Reach
doing it.
one person.
Exactly. Yeah. And it would be, I tried early on to get the word out to local veterinarians, but sadly that's not, I have gotten very few referrals from doctors.
Which is surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's,
Because their scope is limited to ameliorating, or at least holding the hand medically along the journey, but you're holding the emotion along the way. It's not just the administration of a medicine, and by sheer volume, that a vet does not have the time to be as caring and compassionate as you can be, as you both can be.
And some of them, especially the the multi-service specialty hospital, they have support groups, or they have somebody on staff that can do that, and they do provide that. service, but for
Some do.
most of the
Yes.
local vets or the smaller vet groups, it's interesting because I've shared information, brochures or whatever, and I sadly go sitting in a drawer somewhere, and people find me on their own. They
Wow.
have to do the search. And when you're in that very raw state of grief, it's hard to, go looking for help. It's, ideally, to have that information in place ahead of time. So, and that's something we provide, like in the groups, people share information so that people have it down the road, that they may come because their pet is ill, but they know about a home care vet. They know about, funeral home options and, so.
Well, that's something I wasn't as immersed as I have been in Shih Tzus for so many years. And I was aware of the Hamilton Meadows. I never availed myself of it, but I really didn't know there was a funeral facility.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's incredible, because there's the element of closure, as you were speaking before about the ceremony and just the minutia of organizing the goodbye. Even in the age of COVID, there's still the ceremony and what steps you follow, and the notification of friends and family, and the ceremony of it, the closure of it, and the fact that there now is that opportunity for your little fur babies too. I mean, that's extraordinary that we've come to a place that is an honor to do that. That's wonderful.
And, sadly, like a lot of people, like you're saying, do not know about it. And honestly, it's been available since I lost Ziggy in 1985. We had a viewing. Abby Glenn offered us a viewing that day. We had no idea.
Wow.
They and it was, and we were at of course, the burial site. He's up at Abby Glen, so it's been available. It's just getting the word out, and I have tried to do as much as I can, but one person can't do a lot.
Oh, of course.
And but like you said, if you can touch one person and educate or help one person, it makes a big difference.
But we're thrilled to. Oh, look who I see in the background. Is little Noah.
Oh yeah, you can see him now.
Just sitting right there. I just saw his little face.
He's so tired. He had such a rough day. He went back to Tommy's on the other side.
Yeah, I think I can see his little head, but I can't see the rest of him. Oh, it's just so precious, and I think we've touched a lot of people today.
I hope so.
Tell us a little bit about what your plans are for any future conjoining of your skills and talents. Do you plan to just expand your rosters, or is there anything on the horizon that people who just don't know you exist should know about?
I don't honestly have any plans to do anything in addition to the monthly meetings right now. In the past, Debbie and I have, I don't know, I think it was like every year around the holiday time. That's from November through December can be a very difficult time for people who are grieving.
Of course.
In anticipation of that, I every year, actually, except this past one, I did do a little bit, but I was limited. But I had like a special group, and one or two, depending on where the holidays were spaced, where I gave people, though. Bill asked me earlier about coping skills, where I offered coping skills to get through the holiday season, because even if your loss was several years back, the holiday can trigger everything as if, feels as if it was yesterday.
Exactly.
So we always did something, and the people who had come to my group over the years kind of joke, because I always had some sort of crafty activity, that, on the surface look very childlike, but it actually really, it's one of those things that really helps to get the feelings out. And people who didn't even want to participate in my arts and crafts, they would afterwards say how important. I mean, it was something as simple as making a memory jar or, an ornament or, but something that honored their pet or pets. And so, we did that. We did some, Debbie came and did a session with EMDR. You might have even done, I think you did brain spotting at one time with the group, and which are two of the techniques that she uses in her private practice. And we always did something every 5 years at the, the 5th year of anniversary. And it was never we're not celebrating. It's not a celebration. People are coming in pain. It was always, even the holiday was always a way of coping, just to help people cope and to help them honor their pet. And you can get so stuck, understandably, in the hard, sad feelings, just the deep more feelings of grief, where if you do something to honor them, whether it be, PJ, you said you had to go hold a pet, hold a dog or something furry to make you feel good. People go to the shelters and that, just that, being there and being with an animal not only helps the shelter, helps the animals, but it helps to move some of that energy inside, and bring back some of the joy that early on in the grief you don't even remember. I mean, the focus is so much on the illness and the death that you almost forget about all the years of joy that they brought. So, the whole, not to dismiss or, avoid those tough feelings, because you have to feel them. But I didn't with Ziggy, and I didn't grieve him fully. But, you can also remember the life and honor the life. And, so that's about all I have planned. I have nothing future right now at this point.
Well, it's because of the deep connection and the deep love that we experience with these little creatures that makes the grieving that much deeper and more difficult to cope with. So the idea of memorializing in any way is I guess, our way of being tangible, having something that is another outward manifestation of honoring who these little creatures have been to us. It's healthy. It's another way of getting
Right.
the grief out.
Right.
Bill, you've been awfully quiet here. I know you've experienced losses.
Well, yeah, of course. No, I've been enjoying the discussion and just listening. Every now and then it helps just to listen.
Mm-hmm.
But,
However,
no, there's no however. I've just been just soaking in the discussion.
It's interesting, Bill, because a lot of the, I always have people, most people when they come to the group, they do share, they do speak. But I have had people that come for months and all they want to do is listen. They don't speak. They don't need to speak. They may not be able to speak because it's so hard for them. But listening makes all the difference in the world, because they're hearing validation that, they're not the only one feeling some of this, even though each case is so different. They feel validated that. So listening is just as important as sharing, even in a group setting. And I tell people, and it's funny because often people will tell me on the phone, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to talk. I can't even talk about it without crying. And I said, that's okay. You don't have to. And then all of a sudden they feel, I guess, safe enough to start saying something. But I had one gentleman, he must have come for 5-6 months and he didn't speak. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't get him to stop talking. But, he was he was ready, and that's so important that you just let people do it on their own pace. You had asked earlier, PJ, about when to take in another dog or cat or bird, or it there's no answer to that question. There really isn't. And the way I handle it with people is, I listen to what they're telling me, and then I reflect that back to them, because they might be hearing from other people too that they need to have another pet, because maybe the family member is uncomfortable with their pain, you know. And it's hard when there's a family and there are other people in the household, and some people need to go out the next day and maybe look into adopting, and another person may say, I never want to do this again. The pain is too much. And to find, to respect each other and to find that balance, and talk about it with each other, because even in the same family, each person is going to, with the same pet, each person's going to react differently and grieve differently.
And all feelings are valid.
Yes. And there is no right or wrong with grief. And, I can give some suggestions maybe of what other people have done, but I try not to do a whole lot of it. I wait, and I listen to what they tell me, and I kind of follow that direction, because we know inside of us, we know what we need. It's just listening to it sometimes, being guided to listen to it. So.
But one of the things you touched on, Debbie, I'd like you to just expound a little bit on what is brain spotting, and how can that help somebody who's going through the process of anticipating loss or having experienced a loss. I know in your psychotherapy business, you have done this for human grieving of other humans. Please tell us a little bit about what exactly that is and how it will help.
Sure. Yes. Well, I've done several different types of therapies in my career of 30 years. Brain spotting really seems to be the one that works so well, particularly for trauma, because it's a neurobiological behavior. It's based on where you look affects how you feel. So we get a visual spot in the room somewhere that has the resonant feel to what the person is experiencing. And it may sound crazy, but it's the quiet time on the spot. And of course, some people do talk, and that's fine. But as the therapist, we sit back pretty quietly, because it's that deeper brain, our subcortical brain, that knows how to bring things to homeostasis, given the right frame and focus. So what people bring in that they're grieving about, most oftentimes, I just watch where they tend to be looking. And maybe they're looking over here, and just I kind of harness that spot and encourage them that they can just take some time and look there as they've been thinking about and feeling things about their pet. And sometimes it's not the words, it's just being with another person and having the feeling. So I found it very wonderful working with grief, because sometimes, it's great to talk about things, and other times there just are no words. And for me to say something as the therapist, to advise or suggest, it's like they're just not in a place to be doing right now. They're in a place to be having their feelings and just being who they are in their bereavement, right? So it's really been a wonderful way to work. And then people just kind of then begin to mobilize again. It's very much what John has been talking about, their own timing and pacing. And the brain spotting is so wonderful with this, and just gentle. It's laser-like and yet very gentle. So I love working this way, and I love people who love their pets, that have this place in their heart that is hurting. And I know that nothing I can do can take it away, nor would I want to take it away. It's there for a reason.
Exactly.
There's things they learn because of their unique reaction to this particular loss, who this particular dear one was to them. And sometimes, as we've been talking about, in a way that no person can quite be, because people have their agendas and their whatever, but our pets are kind of, it's like that steady stream of that unconditional love. And not only that we feel it from them, but they get us. They, how sometimes you'll feel like, hey, I'm loving you when I speak to you this way, or when I did this for you, and you're pushing me away, and they love it. The more time you spend, the more times you throw the ball, the more, the more you take time to spend with them on your lap. Oh, they receive it. And that's that reciprocity, and that unconditional love is so unique and special. And this is something that in the brain spotting therapy, just whatever comes to the person as they're sitting there, they have the time, the luxury of the time to sit with it. Because that's done and noted so many times. People will try to say something quick, a platitude or whatever, to help move you off your grief, or then to go into what their loss was. And it's like, what about time for you to just
exactly.
sit?
I know it's difficult to do that. We all have our comfort zones, and sometimes other people's discomfort and grief is so difficult to handle that you want to get in and out of it being respectful, but oh my God, I don't know what to say. What's the right thing to say? I don't know how to feel. It can get deeper and deeper. I know, Debbie, you deal with other therapeutic issues, and do you do a lot of this online right now?
Yes, absolutely. Everything's online. And you know what? I love the being online from the standpoint of people are in their own home. And if maybe they lost a pet, but they have another one, and maybe the cat is sitting in the back, or maybe they don't have a pet, but they can currently, but they can show me these were their toys. Here's a picture back here that I have on the wall of them, or whatever it is. They're in the comfort of their own familiar surroundings, and also in the sort of despair of their surroundings that are not comfortable right now because their animal isn't there.
Sure.
And so we can sort of work with what comes up right in living color, right in the moment. So I really have actually liked the telehealth, even though, not to replace, being in person, but it also has its place. So.
Right. And you're more one-on-one, where Donna conducts the group, either online in a Zoom format or in the meetings in person in the library. Debbie, how would one reach you for your sort of therapy?
Sure. They can reach me by email or at my website. My email is D, as in Debbie, Antinori, ANTINORI @gmail.com.
Okay. And you can work then one-on-one like that.
Yes.
And Donna, the service that you've brought to this community for so many years. Again, I know it's at the Franklin Township Library. And what day of the week do you have those meetings? I know they're once a month.
Yes, it's the third Sunday of each month.
Okay.
And we are, it used to be flexible, when it was at home, when I had it here, if there was a snowstorm or something happened, we could all, people couldn't make it, I could move it. I don't have that flexibility, so it's only the third Sunday, but it seems to really be working out well. It really does.
And everyone who is there is, of course, socially distant and masked and all of the above.
Well, we have not been in the library since they closed. We have been doing Zoom.
So currently we're doing a Zoom format.
Yes, and I'll tell you, I don't know when we have the option. I might look into maybe doing an extra group, offering a Zoom group and an in-person group. Right now, because it is on the website of the library, it's part of their event calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I need to stick to that particular time and all. But I think since people, I'm reaching people that normally couldn't get to the group. Either they're
Of course.
disabled in some way and they can't travel, or sadly there aren't a lot of support groups for pet loss in New Jersey. So it's too far for them to travel. I've had
Sure.
people travel 1 to 2 hours to get to my group when
Wow.
when I held it in my home, because there weren't a lot of groups. It's getting better, but I can reach more people by Zoom, and people seem to like it. That's I don't know. There's something different. I said we're missing the being in the room, and afterwards people would kind of mingle a little bit and share personal stories. We don't have that now, but like people said, we can actually look at each other's face, because so there's some really some good things about it also. So I might do
people are
something
then in the
where
comfort of their homes where their animals have been.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of them, like Debbie said, their current pet, or if they're, I've had a number of people recently that are attending the group for anticipatory grief. So their sick pet is right there with them. They don't have to worry about leaving.
Wow. Yes.
When
Of
we
course.
have, any of us here know when you have a pet that's sick, your whole schedule is around that.
Absolutely.
My family and friends knew I had a 2 window, block of time, and anything outside of that, I was not going to attend,
Sure.
because my focus was on them, and that's the way it is with all of us.
And has to be, rightfully so.
Yeah.
So, wow. Well, this has been just a wonderful evening with both of you, both beautiful blondes, I might add, who also with huge hearts, intellect, and experience in handling the human spirit when the human spirit is at its most vulnerable. So again, Donna may be reached at Friends of Nicky Pet Loss Support. That's all one word out of Friends of Nicky, Nikki, Pet Loss Support at Comcast.net. And Debbie Antinori is Dantinori, DANTINORI at gmail.com. So we thank you both really so much. So much for what you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you, PJ. I really appreciate you doing this.
Maybe next time we can do this and invite some of the people from Abbey Glen and Hamilton Meadow for another chapter of what is possible to help people ease their grief when they've lost a little fur baby, or scale baby, or wing baby, or shell baby. Wow.
I want to thank my Nicky, because my Nicky has changed my life, and gave, she gave me Debbie was talking about, all the roles they play and how they're there through so much of what we go through in our life.
Yes.
It might be a 10-year span, but so much happens and they're right there for us. Well, they're right there for us even after they're gone.
Yes.
And in a different way. And Nicky has impacted my life since she's left, more so even than when she was here. So, and other people, she's touched other people. So I want to thank little Nicole. Her tail is up there wagging. I know it.
Yeah.
Got a sister to play with now.
Yes,
so
I know.
All right. Well, thanks very much for coming on. We appreciate it. And here's to another 20 years.
That's right.
Yes. Okay.
You have a great
All right.
You guys have a
Thank
great
you
night.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's
Brings back a whole lot.
Yeah.
A
Too
whole
many.
lot. And some of the things that I'm surprised that I was not aware that there were actual funeral services possible. A funeral home I mean, the closure that of course, it's impacted by COVID right now. That
Sure.
you can't do much in person, but the fact that it's there, that it's a service, a service of a service,
Right.
that is that's wonderful. I think
Nice.
that's what people need. They really
Right.
need that, and too often it's okay. Oh, it was just a fill in the blank. No, it wasn't just a. This was a piece of my heart.
Absolutely.
Piece of my heart who deserved that honoring, that closure, and that
Yep.
proper send off.
And Franklin, you should be aware that we will print pet obituaries.
Yes, and always at no charge.
So every obituary is at no charge, but yes.
Every obituary is at no charge. We
Anyway,
call it the life stories, and from day one, we were determined never to put people grieving in a financial position where they could not express that grief in a printed or digital format.
Well,
so please know that, Franklin.
we had a lot of people watching tonight, so that's a good thing. Boy, I'm sort of tongue-tied here. Anyway, Franklin, yeah. If you want to get in touch with us, if you have a story idea or a criticism or just want to make a comment, you can contact me, the editor at franklinreporter.com. If you would like to support us through advertising, which we would heartily endorse doing, you may contact PJ Parker at ads@franklinreporter.com. The other way to support us is with a subscription, $37 a year. It's a little more than 10 cents a day. And that goes a long way into providing independent journalism in Franklin Township, which is something that definitely is needed.
And I'd like to just add to that. It's not just about supporting independent journalism, Franklin. We've worked very hard in the last 7 years to become a force of information and inter-information and connecting various groups and certainly various cultures within our community. And when we have news out there for people to avail themselves of, your message of your endeavor, of your business, is being followed by a lot of readers who have a lot of interest in what goes on in this Franklin Township community.
Right.
It's to your advantage to be a part of that. So it is not just about supporting the concept of independent journalism. It is having the advantage of the inside track of what's going on in your backyard, in the community that we live in and that we love.
Right.
So it's all circular. Everyone does well when everyone supports everyone else.
Exactly.
So that's kind of what I have to say about that.
And one more time, folks, if you want to get in touch with Debbie Antinori, it's dantinori, DANTINORI @gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with Donna Kahora and Friends of Nicky, it is Friends of Nicky Pet Law Support. One word. Friends of Nicky, NIKKI, Pet Law Support @comcast.net. To see what's going on in town, please direct your browser to www.franklinreporter.com. We're on the Twitter machine. Franklin Editor is our handle. Of course, you know that we're on Facebook, Facebook/Franklin Reporter. And our Insta address is Franklin_Reporter_and_advocate.
Well, that's a mouthful.
So a lot of mouthfuls there.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it, Franklin.
I think it's going to be very interesting to bring a couple of people from Abbey Glen and, and Hamilton Meadow. I think that's going to be very interesting. I know they couldn't do it this year, but there's usually a candlelight service, a candlelight vigil every year for just memorializing any of the losses.
Oh, that's nice. And then there's also the blessing of
animal babies. Yeah.
Blessing of the animals that St. Matthias does.
Yes.
I believe the animal shelter also hosts something like that once. I don't know if they're going to do it this year or not, but
well, we'll see. There's a lot that people don't understand but want to know about animal care and our animal companions.
Mhm.
The interest is tremendous because what they give us is invaluable.
And boy, we sure did get cozy with our animals over the past year, haven't we, Franklin?
We've been hearing all sorts of reports about how our little critters are gaining weight because we must be feeding them so much. But the corollary to that is that they're getting walked a lot too.
They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones gaining weight over this pandemic. Good grief. We're
Well,
gonna
I
do a
think there's
show. We're
there's a
gonna do a
light at
show.
the end of that tunnel, and I think we're all really grateful that we're
Yeah.
starting to see a little bit of a glimmer.
We're gonna have to have some sort of a fitness person on in the near future to talk about how to get rid of the pandemic pounds.
Right? Ooh, I like that pandemic poundage. Woo, that's good.
Dump that. No, we used to call the when you the pounds you gained your very first semester, freshman year in college, the freshman 15, and I was a victim of that myself, thanks to what did I have? What did I eat? Oh,
Having to cook for yourself.
no, it wasn't even that. It was going to the we used to call them the roach coach. It was going to the food trucks. They used to
That's
park
awful.
outside of Livingston College every night. You go there at
That's
11
awful.
o'clock or 12. Well, they were called roach coaches, maggot wagons, grease trucks. I mean,
Oh,
it
good
depends on what you
grief.
wanted, the mood you were in. But anyway, they're out. It was all over Rutgers. I mean, obviously the ones on College Ave are the most famous ones, but they came to Livingston College as well, and we would go out there. My Livingston College people know this. We'd go out there and you get your cheeseburger or your tuna sub or whatever. I generally got a tuna sub at 11 o'clock at night, but you're 18 years old. You burn that off walking back.
Wow.
Whereas one guy, one guy who was probably under the influence of what our next podcast, our next news hour is going to be, once asked for a tuna burger.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, his feet were
Okay.
not on the ground. Um, Anyway, yeah, we need to get a fitness expert in here and talk about. Give us some strategies for losing this weight.
Right. We have a
Wow.
couple of candidates for that. We have
We
a
sure
brand new
do.
advertiser who
Yeah.
we will be hearing from, I do believe, this week,
Yep.
and a few other
And a long
people
term
who
advert.
are in the fold,
Yeah.
where the gyms are starting to open, of course, with all the modifications necessary for distancing and masking. And at the core of all of this is keeping ourselves strong and as healthy as we
Keeping us
can,
and keeping
in
us
addition to
back.
the rest of what's going on.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, I went to school in the city, so I didn't have any of those little food truck thingies. We
oh no,
had restaurants, we had coffee shops.
you missed out. That's a
I was in Greenwich Village. I went to
that's
NYU,
that's a
so
key
it was a
experience.
whole different vibe.
No,
Yeah.
that's a key college experience aside from
Yeah.
spring weekend. The nightly pilgrimage to the Roach Coach, and then of course there was the trip to Somerset Diner. I think my friends and I paid for some of the renovations that went on to that diner. Of course, we used.
Well, that's a little bit of Bowman history.
Roman history.
Very good. Very cool.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I
Franklin.
think we will be back tomorrow morning, Franklin. We have a very interesting news hour coming up with Assemblyman Joe Danielson, who was very instrumental in the crafting of the medical and recreational marijuana usage. And he's going to give us a pretty full update as to what's going on in terms of Franklin, in terms of the community, in terms of the marijuana situation.
Right. We're going to be
Whose time
talking.
has come.
We're
So
going to be
that's
talking.
tomorrow at 11.
11 a.m.
Yes.
Eastern Standard
So
Time. We're going to be talking about what's
legal
legal,
weed in New Jersey.
legal weed in New Jersey. What's legal, what's not, and what could be some business opportunities. Because there were some provisions, as I recall, written into the bill that could benefit folks in Franklin and certain and who would want to set up shop in certain parts of town. So
Mhm.
we'll let Joe talk about that tomorrow.
Yes. So
And by
that
the
should
way,
be
it's also
very interesting.
his birthday.
Yes. Yes.
So maybe-
Very, very important day.
Don't
So
tell anybody that we told you, though. It's
yes. Well, it was one of the reasons that we wanted to schedule it on that day as well, because this is as influential and as terrific as Joe has been behind the scenes. I mean, throughout this pandemic, especially over the summer months, you would frequently, and he never publicized this, you would see him making pizzas outside the food bank, and at every well, even before the pandemic at St. Matthias Carnival, he'd be behind the scenes with his chef hat on, cooking and serving. He's a behind the scenes kind of guy.
He has a little pizza crew there.
His pizzas are really,
And
really
the
good.
pizzas are very good. I mean,
Really good.
we've had him a bunch of times.
Yeah,
And
exactly. But
well,
you know,
I
he's
think he
doing
learned,
that at his own expense.
he learned
He'd
his,
show up at the food bank and he'd be
yeah.
with his ovens and several volunteers and making pizzas to hand to food bank clients.
Right.
And he never talks about it. He just does it.
He learned his
So-
craft at Alfredo's, if I recall.
You're right. You're right. He was a pizza guy there when he was in school
Younger.
age.
Younger guy.
So yeah. Anyway, everybody's got a path.
Yes.
So anyway, that's tomorrow
right.
morning, Franklin. It's 11 a.m.
Good
right
Lord.
here.
Yes, right
And,
here.
the link will be going up
On your
shortly after we
As
sign
soon as
off
we
here.
sign off, we'll be putting up the link on the Facebook page to check
Yes.
in. So,
So
yeah.
anyway, we're happy to have been here one more time, Franklin. The Franklin Reporter and Advocate News Hours, which you may sponsor if you have
Yes.
a business or you just feel like you'd like your name out there for a particular cause that you sponsor. Please let one of us know. It's editor@franklinreporter.com or ads@franklinreporter.com.
Yes.
And we can get you set up. They'll give you a few minutes to be introduced about whatever your business and location is at the top and bottom of the news hour.
Right.
So let us know. And again, as Bill said before, if you have an idea for a topic or there's just something that is burning a hole in your brain that you really, really want to hear more about, please let us know.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again for tuning in this evening, or tuning in whenever you've tuned in to the recording of this news hour. We really, really appreciate your support, and we appreciate your support in reading our website and reading our monthly newspaper. Don't forget, we have a whole family of publications. We have the Franklin Reporter website. We have the Morning Report, which is the email news blast that goes out at 5 a.m. every day with the latest headlines, which you can sign up for free at www.franklinreporter.com. We have the monthly digest, which is also complimentary to the reader and is supported by advertisers. And when you see an ad in either on our web products or our newspaper, please patronize them. Tell them you saw their ad in the Franklin Reporter, whatever it is. Just say Franklin Reporter, they know what you're talking about, and thank them for supporting independent, local journalism in Franklin Township. We are not a franchise, Franklin. We are what you see. We're long-term residents. We love this town. We are doing what we do to give back to Franklin Township, and we don't get our marching orders from outside of the state. We don't have to send any money outside of the state to some corporate overlord. We're right here. So
We're the corporate overlords.
we are the corporate. We have seen the corporate overlord, and he is us.
Oh
So
my
thank you
God.
again for your support. I'm getting giddy.
I know. I think it's time to say goodnight, Franklin.
Good night, Franklin. Okay, Franklin. We're gonna sign off, and as usual, Franklin. Until we meet again, stay safe. PJ, say that thing that you always say.
And I'll say that as tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock with Assemblyman Joe Danielson, we'll be back.